Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar on ID and AML checks for wills and probate. I appreciate that you are all very busy, so thank you for taking the time out to join us. A couple of bits of housekeeping before we get started. The webinar should last no longer than 25 minutes. In terms of recording, we will make sure that we distribute a copy of the webinar afterwards, just in case you would like to refer back or maybe a colleague has missed it. There's a questions box on the right-hand side, so you have the opportunity to ask any questions. We will try to answer those throughout. My name is Lindsay Petzer, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Jack Knott.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing very well today.
We're both client relationship managers here at Lawyer Checker. So today we're going to be introducing you to a couple of services that our wills and probate clients use on a daily basis to mitigate risk and to save you time. Before we get started, I wanted to give you an overview of Lawyer Checker. So Lawyer Checker was set up in 2013 to help law firms mitigate the risk of fraud and cybercrime, with a particular emphasis on fund transfers and ID checks. We work with wills and probate professionals across the country to support them in identifying clients and beneficiaries and confirming their bank details before the transfer of funds. Over the years, we've worked very closely with wills and probate industry. Our directors, Chris and Karen, founded today's Wills and Probate in October 2014 with the intention of informing will writers, probate practitioners, and estate planners about changes that are happening in their market. They've recently stepped away from the business, and I should say very recently, it was last week. The new owner is David Opie, and Lawyer Checker will continue to have a close working relationship with the publication as a selected partner.
There are many challenges throughout both the onboarding process of new clients and confirming the validity of a beneficiary's bank details. Here are some of the common challenges that we've identified that many private client lawyers encounter in their profession. First being delays in onboarding time, and this is due to the client's availability to attend the office to present their ID. There could be an issue with the client not being willing or just not being able to attend the office to present their ID. This has become ever more present due to the COVID pandemic over the past 18 months. There may be physical limitations in identifying fraudulent documentation, as at the end of the day, you guys are trained to do private client work and not to be forensic analysts. Manual methods of processing identification documents can also be time consuming. Again, your time should not be wasted determining the validity of a client's identity. There may be appropriate validation, needs to be appropriate validation of beneficiaries' bank details before the transfer of funds as well. There may be a lack of confidence in accepting the bank details generally, for example, via emails or the phone calls being intercepted, as there is always a risk of cybercrime. There's also the issue regarding transferring larger legacies to people. There may be a lot of nervousness around whether they've done enough due diligence surrounding this. And this is just as much about covering your own back as it is protecting your clients. So before we get into anything about the service itself, I thought it might be useful for me to explain and give you some background on our involvement with ThirdThought as a business. So a few years ago, we partnered with ThirdThought when they were a startup technology business that specialized in electronic ID for law firms. We have now invested in ThirdThought's business twice, and we have worked very closely with them over the years to develop the service, and in particular, the security in relation to this service. We have now been reselling ThirdThought's ID checks since September 2019, and we currently work with hundreds of law firms to help them verify their client's ID. Ultimately, ThirdThought checks are carried out directly by your clients or beneficiaries using either a mobile phone or a tablet. This means that the burden of completing ID is taken away from your team, and therefore you're able to continue working on more important areas of your file. ThirdThought uses facial recognition technology to match your client or beneficiary up to their ID document and produces a content-rich report for you to keep on file as evidence of enhanced due diligence. Using a service like ThirdThought, clients and beneficiaries can complete their ID at any time and from any place, meaning that they no longer have to come to their office to complete the ID checks and onboarding. And I'm sure you can all appreciate how much time that this will save for both yourselves and for your clients. ThirdThought is also FCA regulated. What this means is that they have to stick to very high GDPR and cybersecurity standards that the FCA have set out. The FCA are the only regulator that sets the compliance bar higher than legal regulators. So we believe that lawyers should be working with providers who are also regulated to this standard. And the FCA does a full review of all the third force policies and procedures when they went through the initial license application. And in addition to this, Further have a strict monthly reporting schedule, so the FCA can make sure that they are maintaining a very high standards on an ongoing basis. Thirdfort also has a proven track record of helping elderly clients complete their ID checks in a way which meets your compliance needs and but also delivers fantastic service to them. And as you can see on the screen here, there is a very high rate of completion success from elderly clients when they are completing their Thirdfort check. So as you can see, elderly clients have no issues when completing their Thirdfort ID checks. Some of you may be surprised to see that the older generations actually have a higher rate of success at passing the Thirdfort check. The reasons behind this that we believe is due to the very strong level of support provided by Thirdfort to their clients, with them providing all the necessary support needed, even if a client needs someone on the phone to talk them through the entire process. To initiate a Thirdfort check, you will need to enter the Lawyer Checker website and click on the Thirdfort section. Once there, you'll be required to fill out the necessary details of the client, such as their name and mobile phone number. You will then be required to select what information you want Thirdfort to obtain from them. And once you've clicked submit, we will send a text message to the client or the beneficiary, instructing them to download the Thirdfort app onto either their mobile phone or the tablet of their choice. There are many additional resources to the Thirdfort service. We have a branded guide that's ready for distribution, and what this means is that from the second that your client receives their welcome pack or their welcome client letters, they'll be fully aware of the Thirdfort ID service and what it offers. Thirdfort really does stand head and shoulders above other ID providers just in the level of support they're able to offer their clients when completing ID checks. They have a dedicated support team who are there to make sure that their clients don't come to you with any tech-based questions and that they can still get the help they need when they're out of office. Thirdfort operates as a pay-as-you-go service and will only charge you on the completion of the check, never on the initiation. What this means is that you will only ever be charged for reports that you receive back from your clients. We highly recommend that you recharge this back to the client and that this should be a cost-neutral expense for yourselves. And the SRA have actually very recently confirmed that they are happy for firms to recharge ID, providing that they are transparent with the cost. And you'll also have the option of both live or recorded training that's available to yourselves and your colleagues if you were to take the Thirdfort service further. So looking at your screen now, this is a typical report that you can expect to receive from a completed Thirdfort check. So once the client has completed their check, you receive an email from us, and within this email, there will be a secure link where you can click and download the safe file. On the left-hand side of the picture, you can see a picture of the client. And on the right-hand side, you can see the personal information submitted by the client, and this is done at the very start of their check. The first part of the report is looking at the document itself. These are the checks which are being carried out by the on-FIDO technology when the client takes a photograph of their ID document. So a common challenge mentioned earlier is the physical limitations in identifying fraudulent documentation. Thirdfort uses on-FIDO technology, and this technology will run a check against the Amber Hill Police database to ensure that the document hasn't been reported as missing or stolen. And the on-FIDO tech is incredibly accurate, far more so than the untrained eye at being able to spot fraudulent or tampered ID documents. And it is vital that this is used as a barrier against this type of fraudulent activity to protect yourselves and your clients. Now, as you can see on the report, each section is broken down into little segments, so it's really clear from a risk assessment viewpoint what it is that you should be considering. The second part of the report concerns the facial similarity, and this is whether or not your client matches up to the ID document that they have provided. The third part of the report is looking at whether the address at the top of the report matches what is held on Experian for this client. You may on occasion see a Royal Mail forwarding address here appear here as well. And this is when the client has put a forward on the mail away from the address that has been listed through Experian. The report will then look at any PEPs and sanctions, and this information will be derived from both LexisNexis and Comply Advantage. So any information that we feel you need to know in relation to any PEPs and sanctions will be published further along in the report in an easy way for you to digest when you see fit. So on the second page of the report, there will be a scan of the ID document for yourselves. And it's important if you're regulated that you keep a copy of the ID document on file. And so this will be published here for you for your convenience. Now, as I said earlier, any information in relation to a PEP or a sanction will be published here on the third page of the report. And we'll also look to include any links to any adverse media reports which you may need to review as part of your assessment of your clients. And finally, you will have a proof of address document here, which will either be a photograph or an attached PDF. And these will be the usual ones that may be accepted, such as a council tax report or a utility bill document. And this will be your third fault report in full. So as you can see, there are clear time-saving and fraud preventative advantages to using our third fault service. The service aims to make your role far easier whilst also delivering the same excellent service to your clients and to your beneficiaries. The app seeks to provide the most sophisticated technology at an affordable price, which is also can be cost neutral to yourselves and your business. And the original third foot check costs $9.95 plus VAT. From the start of the process, we aim to make it very clear where your clients or beneficiaries can get their support if they need it. From the very first text message right through to completing their check. Further, on hand via phone, email, or live chat to help your clients provide their ID to you. I truly feel that this is the reason elderly clients tend to have such a high completion rate using Furthought, and how many private client departments across the country are already seeing the benefits of using the Furthought service.
Okay, so the second service that we'd like to introduce you to is Consumer Bank Account Checker. Our wills and probate clients use Consumer Bank Account Checker before transferring funds to a beneficiary. It checks the bank account details provided, match the beneficiary's name, address, date of birth, ownership, and age of the account. It's powered by Experian's consumer database and provides an instant and reliable report. Consumer Bank Account Checker ultimately exists because client monies are being transferred to criminals impersonating beneficiaries. They intercept communications, succeeding to divert funds to their own bank accounts. At any one time, 11,000 criminal organisations are actively targeting the legal sector with the intention of infiltrating law firms and redirecting funds remitted to clients, according to HM Government. With regular alerts of funds interception, it's no longer a case of if, but when. For this reason, we recommend as best practice that Consumer Bank Account Checker is utilised before the transfer of funds to a client or beneficiary. Consumer Bank Account Checker is available through the Lawyer Checker portal, and here is the information required to complete a check. The client's first name, surname, date of birth, address, account number and sort code. The check costs £2.50 plus VAT and is available in a pay-as-you-go service. As with Third Fort, training is provided to all colleagues utilising this service. Most of our firms recharge the cost to their client as a disbursement. Again, cost neutral to the firm, yet adding an extra layer of protection. Powered by Experian's unrivaled consumer database, Consumer Bank Account Checker provides an instant check on client bank account details prior to the movement of any funds between fee earner and beneficiary. Here's an example of a completed check. The report confirms the account details that you searched match to an existing bank. The ownership type you searched matches the ownership type on the account. The name and date of birth and address is held on Experian's consumer database, and the age of the account. As many of you are aware, fraudsters are very good in setting up bank accounts, receiving funds and closing them pretty quickly. When implementing alongside your risk management processes, Consumer Bank Account Checker helps to protect your firm from the reputational and financial damage of transferring monies to criminals' accounts. Just going back to the challenges that we mentioned earlier, appropriate validation of beneficiary bank details and the lack of confidence in accepting bank details generally and confirming that they are legitimate. Consumer Bank Account Checker checks against the beneficiary's credit file, leaving no credit footprint to confirm the bank ownership. Transferring large legacies to people, the nervousness around have we done enough due diligence. This is why we recommend using both Third For and CBAC in partnership to 1, confirm client and beneficiary identities, and 2, their bank details. Hundreds of wills and probate clients use these services every day to mitigate the risk of fraud and cybercrime. Here are a couple of reviews from our clients.
So thank you very much for everyone for taking the time to listen to our webinar on ID and AML checks for wills and probate. Hopefully this has been of interest to you all. And if you have any questions, please let us know and we will come back to you as soon as possible. And if you'd also be interested in booking some time with either myself or Lindsay to have a more in-depth demonstration of either Third For or our consumer bank account checking service, there'll be a link on your screen now.
Thanks very much, everybody. Take care.